I was like, if I don't publish, then my recontracting issue could be a problem. Let me kind of move this out of the way. Yeah. So that kind of began my whole career, or my whole journey into writing papers outside of my graduate thesis. At the time, I was a PhD student. I hadn't yet even begun my dissertation. So there was there was independent research as well as doctoral research that I needed to write, and so it was a real crazy journey. But I had a lot of great help, and I learned a ton, and kind of felt like it would be a worthy presenter for this topic. So I'll start off by asking, why are you here? Why are we here? Some of you may have some questions about choosing a research topic, setting up study designs, finishing your dissertation, publishing in journals, managing, the emotional stress really of writing a paper, which can influence the quality of your work if you're overwhelmed with the just stress of writing a paper, especially your first paper. So for these reasons, I hope I can help. Let's hopefully have questions at the end. I may be able to best serve you by just taking your individual questions about your individual circumstance. Research papers are, they're just unique to, a lot of them are unique to the researcher. So it's difficult to give a broad advice to any one person without knowing their circumstance. I made if you look at the chat, I made it, this is a workshop. So I put together form asking you, maybe just talk a little bit if there is a research project you're working on. If you want, you can just share a few of the ideas. I promise I'm not going to steal your research idea. No, that's but if you please, if you want to answer those questions, you don't have to. I say very optional. Just so if we have time at the end, we can discuss some of your work. Give this a workshop kind of vibe. So why listen to me? I kind of understand if you are going through research, I understand deeply kind of the difficulties you might be having, or I might have some answers to some of the questions. This is something I do care about, just publishing and being efficient with time. Like I said, with my job as a researcher at Gonguk, I've published over 25 papers, beginning with KCI, and that's a Korean index journal. And I'd like to talk about that a little today. Scopus, now I'm more familiar with the process and ability to write quality papers for SSCI index journals, and the level of difficulty, level of quality can be different between some of the local Korean index journals, Scopus journals, and SSCI journals. Now, we'll talk about that a little bit. I'm also a reviewer for several journals like Educational Psychology, a few other like computers and computers assisted learning. So I understand what like the editors expect when they receive a paper. And these are things you want to kind of, I say, I think I can give you some tips on what it is that you might want to have ready for a journal before submitting. There are a few strategies to publishing academic writing, to publishing and graduating quickly. So that's what I really hope to help if you are working on a paper, taking some advice or just some tips on how to approach the research design so that you finish in a timely manner. So you don't spend 3 years, 4 years, 5 years working on a PhD, so you don't spend 2 years working on a single research article. So first, today I want to share, some reasons for publishing, like why publish in the first place, and the value those publications can have for your career. And we'll review how to identify high quality journals in your field, in the aim and scope of your research. You can save a lot of time by submitting your paper to the correct journal. A lot of times you may end up sending your paper to a journal and they reject it, not because it's a poor quality paper, but because it's just not appropriate for that particular journal. And I want to share with you guys advice on finishing research projects as quickly as possible. And one of the recurring themes of my presentation, something I'll echo again and again, is just keeping your research design simple and having a simple model in mind when you are carrying out any type of paper. Throughout this presentation, I will give tips to publishing, maybe not 101 tips, but with that being said, I want to discuss the reasonable expectations you should have regarding the impact of whatever study you write. One mistake I find that a lot of researchers have is they think their topic, their research is more significant than it might actually be. And that can be a mistake, because if you give too much power to your topic, you're less willing to change when it becomes necessary. If your topic is whatever particular design you have is flawed, you might not walk away from it or change it because you think it's so important, or you think whatever you are doing is quite significant. So it's a good thing never to, I think, give too much, to passion. That's a terrible thing to say. You want to be passionate because it is a topic you do have to write about or care about. But when you give it too much passion, you might not walk away. You might not change what needs to be changed. Now, all right. So let's begin by asking ourselves why we want to publish in the first place. The first reason I think you need to publish, well, as a graduate student, it's often you must publish before you graduate. Doctorate students, for example, should have a couple publications before they finish their dissertation, and it's published to graduate criteria. So that's one reason. But as a teacher, or especially here in Korea, maybe you have the time, but adding the extra lines to your resume, creating that section in your curricula vitae where you can, where you can reference research that you've accomplished is a huge reason, I believe, for motivating yourself to publish. And so a published article carries just a ton of weight towards contributing to your resume. Creating a publication record through academic journals has several advantages. First, through publishing, you can learn the procedure of identifying appropriate academic journals. And this is what I mean is you get the paper written, you identify the journal you want to submit to, you submit, and when you do submit to the appropriate journal, it's an opportunity to become what's called a corresponding author. And some of you might already know everything I'm talking about, but a corresponding author is the point of contact with the editor at the journal. And that's, it's great experience. You will be the one in charge of receiving and sending the manuscript. And also you'll be able to get feedback from the journal. And that's something to really think about with the for KCI index journals, the Korean index journals. The feedback I've received has been, it was just immensely helpful compared to, God bless my supervisor. And when I was doing my dissertation, he just didn't have the time to really provide I think significant feedback. Plus, I got it here at Korea University, so the feedback was more global, not very local. With the KCI journals, Korea Index journals, and sometimes with the Scopus and journals, not so much with the SSCI, but they'll give you specific local level feedback to really guide your writing. So the feedback alone, I think, when you do submit with a journal, it's really beneficial. It's and free. So as the corresponding author, we learn how to communicate, correspond with the point of contact at the journal. And what you do is, if you succeed and you can get that revised and resubmit, the R&R, where you kind of get accepted with minor changes or major changes, you'll be able to get fantastic peer feedback from the journal. And I just find it local. When I first published with this journal, STEM, Society for Teaching English Through Media, it's an English language English language learning journal in South Korea, and I got like 100 reviewer comments. This was 2016. The paper itself was awful, and the thing is, they don't know you're non-native or native, and I think a lot of times some of the journal's editors, at least then, they asked me to have a native speaker review my paper, because I don't know, at that time, I was still kind of learning about the writing process and not reviewing the paper as much as you probably should have been. So submitting a little early. Again, the Korean index journals, KCI, I say KCI because we're here in Korea. If your paper is KCI indexed, if it's a Korean journal that publishes your paper, it looks good. The Korean universities, I think, hiring committees, they appreciate at least a KCI index journal is something that will maybe get your foot in the door. So that's why I reference KCI so much. And they're fantastic because they deal with non-native speakers or no-vice researchers. And so they provide a lot of critical feedback to help improve the quality of your paper. And of course, you go through that process a few times and you learn to avoid having to need so much feedback as you develop as a writer. Now, normally, I think doctoral students, they'll try to publish their dissertation after graduating. Dissertations usually include like several sections that can be significantly shortened with an academic journal. And I'm sure you know this, but a mistake I found a lot of people make is they're quite verbose with their writing when they graduate with their PhD, before even going in, writing their dissertation. What I find is a lot of the students doing their dissertation work or early writers, they want to overcompensate for some maybe lack of experiential knowledge with research. So what happens is you'll end up with pages of justification for research that you might not need in an academic journal, but that would be thrown into the dissertation. You might have pages of content describing the learning environment or the settings, which is not necessary for a research paper. Frowned upon, really. You want to just try to be as concise as possible with the academic writing. And when you're working on your dissertation thesis paper, a lot of times, especially for qualitative research, those sections become just wordy, overloaded with content, and they're just reasons include justifying the reasons for having the study, establishing theoretical framework for the study, and again describing the study settings. You end up with 200-page dissertations, and then you're asked to shorten that for an academic journal. And a lot of times with academic journal for a publication article, less is more, obviously, less is more. And I'll just go say a big mistake that many researchers make is overcomplicating their studies. So this is something I would like to echo often in this presentation, is keeping whatever design you have, keep it really simple. I was recently working with a woman in Saudi Arabia. Her topic is female empowerment, and Saudi Arabia has this vision statement. Recently, 2018, females got the right to vote, they got the right to drive, they don't have to have a male guardian. So she's tracking how the female identity has changed through Twitter hashtags. And now we begin with looking at how the Saudi vision influenced the female identity in regards to family, recreation, health, medicine, employment. And we start with all of these variables, but we really want to narrow it down to what I just say ABC kind of model, where if you have too many variables, if you're looking at, for example, mobility, transportation, this is using the Saudi female example. If you're looking at family, and you're looking at recreation, you're looking at employment and entrepreneurship, there's too many things there. It becomes just exponentially complicated with every new variable you add. So we kind of break it down into, let's say, okay, legislation as some sort of mediator, moderator, and then influencing the female identity as the outcome. And then we have employment, focusing on one particular part that would keep your study in a realistic realm. And what does that mean? Well, it means people who read your study can understand it better, they can reference it better. You're not overwhelming them with too much information. You're not overwhelming the editor with all of these variables, and you don't have to explain each variable, which you have to in a study. If you have any type of variable that you're looking at, they all need to be explained, and justification for adding them into the paper needs to be given. And then the relationship those variables have with one another should be somewhat explained. So when you add just even one extra variable into a study, you're creating a layer that might not be necessary for publication. And again, a lot of, I think, early researchers, students, they're so passionate about a topic, and they've come up with so many variables that they don't want to let any of them go, so that you can get those 5 chapters, you want to just keep the model simple. And I put this model up with, this is a mediation model, the diagram. Now, yes, you could say this is quantitative, but even qualitative studies, ethnographic studies, studies that are just looking at observational data, they still need to have some sort of model where A influences C and B might influence that relationship. You don't explain it with quantitative analysis, but you do explain it with analysis nonetheless. And so even though you might not do a quantitative paper, the qualitative paper needs to have that logic within it. I ask people, don't be scared of quantitative analysis. Anything because I just say qualitative can be just as demanding, mathematically, logically, as any quantitative paper. But with qualitative, you have to just explain yourself, explain the justifications more, and so it becomes almost more time consuming. So I would recommend. Both cases, you need models, and the quantitative case allows you to skip a lot of, I think, writing and go straight to results using YouTube tutorials, something like that. You're able to find out what you need to do for quantitative analysis. I always recommend, for anybody wanting to quickly publish, quickly write a paper, and then you want to do something with the quantitative beyond mean score analysis. You want to do something, with inferential statistics, regression, correlation, at least. And with each paper, you can add a level of difficulty to whatever mathematics, whatever statistics you choose. Anyway, qualitative is beautiful too. I love qualitative. You can write a paper on a single tweet if you want to, if you want to do that. And all right, but yeah, okay. And so I'll go ahead and slow down any. All right. Actually, yeah, one more thing though. Yeah, so time is really what I recommend, highly recommend survey studies. Now, I would, your supervisor or your dissertation supervisor, you're going to want to triangulate. They're going to ask you to triangulate your data. They're going to want you to have different sources. And survey data is the simplest, the easiest source of data. You write the surveys, you ask people to take the survey, and then there are several methods of analysis that you can to interpret what information that survey produces. And in comparison to, let's say, action research, in comparison to observational research, which involves, taking place over a long period of time, sometimes interventions in the classroom, sometimes, bringing in interviews, bringing in participants for interviews and case studies. All of that is intensely time consuming. It's really rewarding, if you are focusing on a topic of interest, but to publish, to get a paper through, the editing, the editorial process, the review process, and to get a paper into print, the time it takes to begin action research, observational research, intervention research compared to survey study is 10 to 1 in time consumption. So if you're approaching a study, an article for your first time, going with, let's say, survey and complementing the survey with, some interview data, that's fantastic. I don't know if it would work for dissertation, but it would definitely work for academic journal. Guy who really got me into surveys, Jamie Consley. He's one of the foremost prominent researchers to really, as a foreigner, come out of South Korea, and he produces just amazing papers. He likens survey studies to the dark side of research because there's so much less work involved, but the payoff is so much higher. Now, with survey studies, you create theory, you create models, you create ideas for others to do action research on, and so it definitely has value, or for other people to disprove if survey study has issues or problems. Now, so that's survey versus action research. And so, what is your publication worth? Now, your first publication will be worth the most. It'll be worth the most mentally with the skills you learn. It'll be worth most financially with the amount of money it could bring you in the long run. Just for that line on your CV, just for that extra experience section in your resume, having a publication or two, it's 10 times more valuable than a presentation or something like that, which is also valuable in and of itself. But I often think that article publication is more valuable than I do think that article publications, at least in some journals, they're more valuable than the doctoral degree, more valuable than graduate's degree, because with the dissertation, you have a professor who's helping you. You have a school, team, a class, an institution supporting the process. But when you can say that you've written an article independently, you show, I think, a lot more character as a researcher. And yeah, I think after your first paper, second paper becomes way easier, and the third paper becomes easier. You can start exploring new methods, designs, etc. The time, it goes by faster. The publication process goes by faster. But of course, you're not going to learn as much as you learned that first paper. Well, another question you might ask is, what type of academic journal should you submit to your first paper to? There are two schools of thought on this one. Some people say, go for the best right away. Don't waste your time with low index journals. And to those people, I hope, they good for them. I think that's fantastic. I did not have the academic writing skills then, and I'm still learning now. There's academic writing is a difficult type of writing to do. The statistics, being able to report statistics, very difficult. If you have a support group, if you had, parents that were academics, and if you went to a great school, all right, these are things that could help you start publishing in high-level journals right away. However, if you were like me, I just wanted to get a paper published so I could keep my job. And I'm glad I did that route, the low index journal. At first, I was able to get the feedback, was able to build up to slowly submit journals to higher and higher level, higher and higher quality journals. I don't like saying quality because some of the lower index journals have very passionate teams working with them, and they are high quality. It's just higher indexed. And when I say indexed, we'll talk about the rating system in a minute for these journals. If I could have started, if you could start publishing SSCI right away, have at it. But it's difficult. It's difficult because again, if you have the right support group, if you have someone that you can go to for help, for proofreading, for guidance, and a lot of times that's not going to be your supervisor. They just won't have. They might not know how to publish in high quality journals, at least regularly. And B, they might be too busy. C, you have a fantastic supervisor, but really with the supervisor, the more they help you, the more they hold your hand, the less independent their students become. So for supervisors to just give their students room and avoid overdoing helpful feedback, which could be beneficial, it might be better for the student in the long run. Supervisors might tell themselves that. I'm assuming a lot of them do. I often get, emails or, from students who have issues and problems related to lack of support from faculty. The types of journals we talked about, KCI and Scopus and SSCI, and with these are the three indexes you really should know if for positions in Korea. Some reason universities, they favor Scopus and SSCI more than American universities. American universities tend to care a little bit less about the indexing of the journal, not as much as South Korea. And it's good though that South Korea does this. It kind of covers them because there are so many bad journals out there. So KCI Korea Citation Index are Korea's based and tend to be, they often are the quickest to publish in. You can get the whole review process finished in about 3 months. If you're lucky, it can take 6 months. And now these are not mutually exclusive. Some KCI index journals are also Scopus. They're also SSCI. And those are like Asia Pacific Education Journal. These are really impressive journals. So I think that one's out of Seoul National University. Some people say SSCI takes 1 to 3 years. These are high level journals. I find that you're probably going to have a turnover of about 12 months tops, unless you're really going for the best of the best journal like Nature or Science. But if you are finding a lower level SSCI journal, you can get it into print within 6 months. But depending on, again, your research design. If your research design is action research, intervention research, it can be complicated. And if it's complicated, it takes longer to review. Less experts are available to review it. If your paper is something simpler, like a survey study with a few models, then, If it's simple qualitative with a simple model, then you would be able to hopefully get a faster review and fewer revisions. That would be what you always want. So for quick publishing, again, I love survey studies. The simpler design, the faster it is. And so finding the right journal, how do we do that? First of all, where does your supervisor publish? This may not be a good question to ask, depending on whatever research topic your supervisor has. And this is only for dissertation students. But where do some of your coworkers or people that you might know publish? That could be a good place to start. If you are a doctoral student, you maybe look at where your supervisor publishes. And that would help. One thing for dissertation student, if they want to graduate quickly, is be flexible on your topic and follow a topic that is similar to your supervisors. So that way they can help make sure you avoid any type of mistakes related to that genre of research. Now, so, all right, I'd say you want to identify top researchers in the field. You can see where they publish, what journals do they reference in their literature. That's a big one. If you know, see like some of the quality studies in whatever topic you're studying, what journal it was published in, and again, who is being referenced in that reference list. So that would give you a good guide to where to publish. And if you're publishing to, let's say, systems, computer-assisted language learning, you want to reference articles from that journal that will put some positive bias towards your paper, because if they publish, that will help increase their index, their ranking. So try to always reference a couple articles to whatever journal you're submitting to. Now, when you there's aim, identify the aims and scope when you're visiting the journal website. Then you want to find out what exactly what kind of research they're publishing. Do they avoid publishing? Some quality journals avoid publishing survey only studies because they know it's kind of a trick. Not a trick, but they know it's the dark side. They know that survey only studies they're limited in their impact because they are only surveys. They are perceptions. They're not, these journals, they want the intervention studies. They want maybe a experimental design, systematic review, but a survey alone is not good enough. That's why I say it's good to have interviewed data on top of surveys. And if you have the survey, that means that you don't really need to be too intense with your interviewed data, but always identify the aim and scope. Make sure that you're submitting to a journal that's appropriate for whatever topic you have, and look at their ranking. Are they Q1 or Q2? Q1 in a certain field like education technology would be top 25% journal in that area. Q2 is 50 to 75% level within that area. Below, like Q3, Q4 at the bottom 50% as far as how many people cite papers from that journal. And you want to at least be Q2. Q1 is ideal. With English, if you're focusing on English, you can usually get into a Q1. There's quite a few. There's just so many journals out there, but Q2. And this is something, now there's a website, SCIMAGO, and that website will provide you all of the stats for whatever journal you're looking at. It'll also give you, it's a fantastic website when you're starting to search for appropriate research, your research journal to submit to. Check SCIMAGO. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but SCIMAGO, maybe .com, and that'll be great. Here's the as this is the Simigo journal, this is what it'll show you. You'll see that indexing of 7. That's quite low. It's you can still get like these are all Scopus journals in this website, and Scopus is the international English journal, and that's great. That's a great beginning, a starting point with finding those Scopus. You'll also get the it also tell you if the journal is SSCI, and it'll tell you the H index, and H index kind of deals with how many people have cited papers from this journal in recent years. It'll tell you the 88% likeness to this journal, 86% similarity to this journal. So this website is just fantastic. Oh, I hope you all know about Google Scholar too. That's another website. I've found some of my grad students, they don't know about Google Scholar, and that's a travesty, because that's a any type of search engine, and you probably know websites better than Google Scholar. Anyway, that website, Simigo, please check it out. It's fantastic. And now, if you're beginning, I recommend 6 and 7. You'll get into 1820s, and just try to publish, just submit to a high level journal and see what happens. The worst thing they can do is say no. And often they say no, and they give you reasons why, and you can correct the paper. And it, as writing is a recursive process, so is this publication process. So, all right, it took me a while to get to tips for publishing. So now we just talked about reasons to publish and how to identify academic journals. I would like to discuss tips to publishing quickly, more tips really. And so the first thing to do is, what is your topic? What is your dependent variable? And what research design will you use? So if there's, if there's anything that you take away from this presentation, it's that the dependent variable is the main character of your story. So now, what does that mean? Well, what is being influenced? What is what is the study about? Is the study about the independent variable? Is it about the setting? Is it about the dependent variable? A little bit of all of it? No, everything should be about the dependent variable. How the independent variables influence the dependent variable. And so the DV, that's the main character. That's the protagonist of your story. And so you want to have that spider's web maybe, and just think about how all the lines in the web are connected to that dependent variable. And that will help get published, because that's what your editor is looking at. That's what the reviewer is looking at. And the reviewer sees, why are you talking about this? It's not connected to the dependent variable. That could be a question that's going on in their head. Now you say, well, I really love this independent variable. I want to talk more about it. No, don't. That's where passion can be a problem, because your passion will mislead you because you want to keep the logic of your paper focused on the DV. Every section in the lit review needs to kind of be directed indirectly or directly to the dependent variable. And now, again, I don't know. You definitely question what I say. I'm not it's some sort of I'm not a know-all. There's so many, I think, research is so interpretive sometimes, especially qualitative research. And so these are just some rules that I follow. It's not some sort of it's subjective, but keeping everything focused on the dependent variable is really a must. Having like a simple design, like I said, with a clear dependent variable just makes everything go easy for you to write it, because you're looking at a paragraph and you're asking yourself, is this paragraph connected indirectly or directly to the DV? If not, get rid of it. Get rid of it or change the paragraph so that you have that cohesion. You want that cohesion where it's all, where all of your research questions should have some connection to the DV, and they need to be related. And if they're not, you need to change them. So, all right, where is your data coming from? Now, I hope that you know that if you're doing a study, you really need to have direct access to the data. That means that if you're a teacher, this makes it really easy. Students who don't teach, or students who are only students, have a more difficult time collecting data. If you're studying behavioral study for in manager office situations like Samsung or LG, you should make sure you have connections to Samsung and LG, because if you don't, you're not going to have access to the data you need. And so, yeah, it's a bottleneck, of course, but it's one you have to be aware of. If you don't have really the closer the connection you have to the data, the better. A lot of times, you might just study personal circumstances. If you're a teacher, you're teaching English, you're using a certain type of technology, then let that be the setting, let that be the environment, and you'll have fantastic source of data. And then that means when you find out that you need to go back and get more data, you can very easily. You also have like that experiential knowledge, that intimate understanding that the readers don't necessarily have. So you come off looking more of an expert because you're writing from a place of personal knowledge. And so I highly recommend, make sure you have access to the data. Finding that data is actually really tough. Especially because if you've already done so much research on your own personal environment, and there's really not much else to do, you have to begin kind of going out there and trying to find new sources of data. Now, that involves asking friends or coworkers to help with collecting data. And of course, it involves, maybe paying participants for their time, which is all levels of complication you really don't want when you're a graduate student or when you're just beginning, because there are so many times you're going to make mistakes. You need to go back, you need to do the research, to data collection again, and you don't want to have to pay participants again. You don't want to have to ask your friends again. So, writing from getting connections to the data source is really important. If you don't have it, I recommend choosing a different topic. I've got a friend, he's doing studies on work-life balance and in the office, not in school. And he doesn't have access to, he doesn't have access to employees working in that environment. So you end up stuck in your PhD program for an extra year, extra 2 years, and then you might have to change your topic, extra 4 years, all but dissertation degree, which means that you did all your coursework, but you just didn't publish a dissertation, ABD. And that's not terrible, but you want to really publish a dissertation. And without constant access to data, you're making it more difficult for yourself. And I'm just going to do a time check real quick. All right. Oh, no.
2 more minutes.
Thank you. Okay, fantastic. So, yeah. All right. All right, so I call some data fast and some data slow. Fast data would be like something like computer logs, something like structured interviews. Structured interviews is where you have a very clear, you have an objective that you're walking into the interview with. You have specific information you want to get. It could be like a sentiment analysis. You're trying to find their positive or negative perceptions towards something. Slow data would be something like repeated measures. You're doing a survey at the beginning and a survey at the end of a semester. You're doing a survey with this cohort, and then you're doing another survey in a year later. And that's just open-ended, bottom-up interviews. But fast data is what you want. Surveys, computer user logs, top-down, structured interviews, where you can easily code. You can identify the themes because you walked into the interview with specific themes kind of in mind. And that will just really help speed along the study. And now working with experienced researchers, that's a big one. So you want to, if you have access to someone who has experience in whatever field you're doing studies in, they're just back and forth through messengers can give you a ton of information, save you a lot of time, especially if they are giving you advice on whatever model you might be having. Put in emails, organize a separation of responsibilities. So this is working with coworkers as co-writing, co-authoring. It could be a huge mistake if you have a bad co-author, someone that doesn't have the same work ethic you have, someone who doesn't have the same end goal, someone who's too passionate about a certain variable and is not willing to change. That could be terrible. So once you identify a great co-author, you'll really be able to speed up the publication time and just separate the responsibilities. Are you good at lit review? Are you good at discussions? Then you can do the more hands-on research with finding background information, and the other person can do the stats, or they can do some other type of, they can do the methods and results, and you just delegating responsibilities with your co-authors. So co-authors do help, but they're a double-edged sword. The right co-author can help you publish a ton. The wrong one can really slow you down. So now, last, I'd like to remind you to just keep the research design simple. Your paper doesn't need to be perfect. It's 5 chapters. It's all that you really need to write. Follow APA guidelines. Now, hold on. Rewriting is really essential. Just remember that, a paper is like a sketch. And what the cool thing about sketching is you use your eraser all the time. And the same thing goes with writing a good paper. You go back and you erase and rewrite, and you do that again and again until it's just perfect. Don't get lazy at the end. I've seen a lot of papers where the conclusion and discussion just fall very short of any type of quality. So put some gasoline in your tank just to finish off the paper towards the end. And just remember, put some gasoline in your tank to do the rewrites that you need, to ask some people to do some proofreading for you. Common mistakes. So there are a lot of sections in a dissertation that are not necessary for an article. And you can look at our research papers in whatever journal you're publishing and just see what they're doing, and maybe follow their formatting, just so you can avoid having to waste time with unnecessary sections or verbose sections, spending too much time, for example, explaining your theoretical framework might not be necessary in some journals. Unclear dependent variables, avoid that. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Let's remember that writing is a lifelong process. So, that's why I say your supervisor is still learning. If you are dependent on a supervisor, they, hopefully they're the expert in their field. And sometimes you come to them with a different topic that they don't know enough about, and it's not worth their time to really become a professional in. So you'd want to just keep that in mind, that even they're, learning, I think. So control your emotions. Don't overwrite the literature review. Focus on papers related to your dependent variable. That's it. Limitations in future research is kind of the call to action that your paper is. Don't forget that, the whole reason you wrote the paper is that you want the reader to be persuaded to perhaps, follow a new line of thought, to think differently, to carry the torch and go towards the future research. So the pedagogical implications section, if you're doing education research, but also limitations in future research, may in a lot of ways be quite important for whatever impact you do end up having as a writer. Always ask for help. Email researchers is a fantastic source. If there's a researcher you think is worth asking a question to, email them. They're probably, these researchers spend a lot of time with their computers alone. Maybe they don't mind getting emails. I've gotten emails back from some of my I think some of my favorite researchers quickly, and they're very helpful towards just giving you advice. So also the websites like ResearchGate, YouTube tutorials, and Google Scholar, a lot of what you can do, you teach yourself. You know, I don't see why a supervisor, you don't want to really depend on a supervisor so much. You want to be your own person and handle all of your own problems. Guys, I am running a little low on time. I will share these slides. I do want to write a long form proceedings. And now I want to just say, nobody cares about your research topic as much as you. And committee members, who are they? Barely know who they are. This is for if you are a dissertation student. And be reasonable again with your expectations. Avoid too much passion. Just some, you know, advice for non-native. I don't think there are too many non-natives here. You feel disadvantaged for sure, but it's tough. It's tough. Anything you have to do, but you have to do it in a second language. It's going to be immensely more difficult. And there's really a few things you can do, except sometimes pay for editing services. But I'm a big fan of Papago, Grammarly, and plagiarism checkers. Those are all things that we want to do. Guys, Grammarly, I hope you're using it. It's a fantastic source for correcting your small mistakes. Sometimes the paid version is worth getting. I would love to see if there are any questions, guys. I want, here's the contact information. And I am one of those people who just have, you know, a sad, pathetic life where I do too much writing. And if you have plenty of time for feedback questions. So if you have any questions, please email me. And I'm going to go check out, let's check this out right now. I don't know if this workshop portion, I know it became a bit of a lecture and not so much a workshop. I hope you don't mind. But if there were any questions, I'm happy to answer them through the chat message. Awesome. Well, I'm not gonna alienate one person who did this. I don't need anybody saying, "Oh, there's a teacher's." Lisa, I just did that. Thank you, Lisa, for telling us about a possible study. Are you working on this study right now, Lisa?
Well, it's actually an area that I started in and I want to work on. Yes, want to work on.
And action research in the classroom with your students.
Yes.
And that's fantastic. For like, yeah, it's a fantastic exploratory experience, kind of. And now reflective practices. I'll just let you know, there are a ton of great reflective surveys. Getting an established survey, I should have tell everyone that now. Make sure whatever survey you do, in-house developed surveys, leave that to the professionals. Sometimes you have no choice but to write your own survey questions, but I've seen really sloppy ones where you think you're being clever and it ends up just making it overcomplicated. Have a Likert design of 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 for every single scale, and that'll make your life easier. Try to avoid yes, no kind of questions, because that creates, it's difficult really to, your grouping is too large. Of course, but yeah, with reflective practices, Lisa, I highly recommend, and I'm sure you may have already seen some good surveys. And the cool thing about reflection surveys, because it's a starting point, it helps guide your interviews. And those studies, you can copy their procedures, and that's cool. A creative, that's a good one too for Zoom. Lisa, are you thinking about? Are you teaching through a video conference or in class?
In class mostly, and in the past I've done classes via Zoom.
And students now are kind of all like these educational technology experts, because of before it was unethical to ask students perhaps to do some things with technology because it's time consuming, it's taking time away from like maybe more valuable methods of studying. But now we can assume students have almost 2 years of experience in online study. So it allows you, I think, a little more room with the type of creative presentation design you can choose to do. Lisa.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Thank
Sorry
you,
to
Reese. Thank you.
interrupt. I know there's a plenary session about to begin, so I don't want to prevent people from going to that. But
Absolutely.
thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Let's unmute and give a big round of applause to
All right.
Daniel, please, everyone. Very well done.
And
Thank you
please,
so
yeah,
much.
if there are questions, I'm more than happy to do do correspondence back and
Yes,
forth.
there's your contact details are in the slide. If also the Discord server is a great place to continue discussions if you wish to continue. And yes, I did put the Easter egg in the chat. If you didn't see that, Dead Poet Society, and I will once again like to say thank you, Daniel, for your incredibly insightful tips there on publishing some useful.
Thank you, Reese. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to watch it. And all right, plenary time. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. See you there. The plenary is
Okay.
beginning at 5. All right. Take
Thank you,
care,
Daniel.
everyone.
Thank you for sharing.